a blockbuster cancer drug, an immunotherapy. It will normally cost about 40 lakh rupees in India to treat. Yeah? Obviously, many or most cannot afford this. So, working with the pharma, we have created a mechanism whereby we do a socio-economic evaluation of the family. And again, it is a digital journey, just requires PAN card, Aadhaar card, TAT of less than half an hour, everything put together, and a decision is then conveyed automatically. Based on that evaluation, that drug becomes available for 11 lakh rupees. Instead of 40 lakh, the drug is now available to that family for 11 lakh rupees. And that again in 12 interest-free installments.
Welcome to an exciting new episode of Fintech Baat. This one's a special one since we have not only one founder, but we have multiple industry veterans from across domain gathered here today to discuss about evolution of healthcare payments and share their various perspectives from different sectors such as insurance, pharma, and finance. To co-moderate this panel discussion with me today, I have with me Mr. Chris George, who's the founder and CEO of Qube Health. Thank you so much, Chris, for doing this and gathering the panel.
My pleasure, Shreyas. Thank you. It's great to be here. And hello, everyone. Apurva, Jose, and Atul, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to me and Shreyas.
Indeed, and it's been an honor to host you guys here. Before we dive into the topic at hand today, I'll just quickly like to go around the room and introduce everyone. We have with us Mr. Apurva Sule, who's the head growth at Lupin Digital. We have with us Mr. Atul Deshpande, who's ex-COO of SBI General, an industry veteran with over 3.5 to 4 decades of experience. We have with us Mr. Jose Peter, who's co-founder and CEO of Arogya Finance. Thank you, everyone, for taking out your precious time and joining us today. So, the topic at hand today, as I said, is evolution of healthcare payments. Before we get into healthcare payments, let's take a step back and get a bit more context of what's happening in the healthcare industry from insurance and payment side, and then where essentially does healthcare payments as a topic comes into play. So for that, Chris, I'd kind of like you to give all of us a bit more context of what's happening in the industry and how does healthcare payments fit into the entire, the fund movements that happen in the healthcare industry. So over to you, Chris.
Well, I think it's an important point for the audience to understand that how we pay for healthcare essentially determines our access to healthcare for our families. Most of us, when we think about healthcare expenses or healthcare bills, for some reason, the only thought that first comes in our mind is catastrophic healthcare expenses. And by catastrophic, I mean, cancer, cardiac, or any other such big incidents that unfortunately, let's say, our family members may experience. And that's when we think that, oh, we need to have the money aside for this. Some of us who are privileged enough to have some form of health insurance assume that the health insurance policy that we purchased will just take care of such catastrophic expenses.
Right.
There is another aspect to average Indian family's healthcare expense, which is actually non-catastrophic. Everyday medical expenses that typically cover things like dolo or hygiene or a diagnostics center visit or a doctor visit or something as basic as a laparoscopy or various other such expenses which are elective, or the industry calls it as elective expenses.
Right.
As it turns out, with fortunately all of us being benefited with a lot of private clinics that have come up, the quality of dental care, the quality of eye care, skin care, hair care, etc., all of these elective procedures has gone up. Now, the unfortunate part is because these are private clinics, many of them, in fact, perhaps most of them, are not covered under your health insurance plan, which means that we end up spending from our pockets. As Indians, we end up spending between $50 to $72 billion every year using our personal money. Personal money basically means money that we have saved as a family. um, there is that saying in India that save money for the old age. What they don't tell you is it is save money to spend on healthcare in the old age. And it is not just your old age, but old age of your family members that almost inadvertently all of the earning youngsters end up spending on for the elderly members of the family. So, given that context, I think it is important and interesting for us to hear the point of view of Jose, who comes in with a very deep and nourished experience on medical financing across
Indeed.
different healthcare providers, hospitals, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, we will speak to Atul and Apurva beyond that as well. So I
Sure.
will redirect the question and the mic over to Jose. Perhaps, Jose, you could tell us a little bit about what you are seeing on the ground.
Thank you, Chris. As you rightly put, the big elephant in the room is out-of-pocket expenditure for healthcare. So so you have no, you don't have an insurance, or you do not have adequate insurance, and there are major healthcare expenditures, both elective and critical to pay for, and it becomes a major problem. So the data shows that um, uh, medical shocks is the number one reason for poverty in this country. It is not only that people are poor, therefore they cannot afford quality healthcare. It is healthcare that made them poor in the first place. So it's a very highly impactful space, a space that is, crying for attention. What Arogya has done is we try to create a healthcare financing infrastructure there. And Arogya's solution includes a quick and seamless healthcare finance, okay, which is auto approved in less than a few minutes. You can approve a loan of up to 10 to 15 lakh rupees with minimum documentation and high approval rates. It is very accessible because we are available right where the treatment is going on, and often embedded into the delivery mechanism of the pharma companies itself. It's also cheaper because most of the loans that we give out are interest-free loans, obviously facilitated by the pharma and the medical device companies and or the caregivers. So this is how we are trying to solve this problem. So this is a problem which is humongous. Maybe 1,20,000 crore, out of pocket expenditure market, growing compounded at 15% a year. Okay, a space which is taking around 5 to 6 crore Indians into poverty every year because of the medical shocks that they face. And solutions are possible. Arogya and slowly an industry that is falling in place is demonstrating that. And we are there to provide solutions to this, which are quick, highly accessible, and very cheap. So from a patient's perspective, there's nothing more that they can ask for.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Jose. And I'll come back to you with a few more questions related to that. But Shreyas, over to you.
Thank you, Chris. Just a quick follow-on question, Jose. When you are there on the ground, your staff is on the ground, kind of dealing with patients who come with different kind of loan requests. What's the most repeated use case that you see for which you have to give a loan to a consumer?
So loan requests come from all areas. Elective, in fact, there are many players out there trying to create solutions for the elective. We also do. But more than that, what Arogya does is go out and help patients who are critically ill.
Right.
Okay? So we don't differentiate between, let's say, a hair transplant or a terminal cancer case.
Right.
We don't differentiate necessarily between a 50,000 rupee procedure for skin versus a 15 lakh loan requirement for cancer. Yeah. So requirements are all across, but
Understood.
our belief is that the real need is in the critical space. So we spend a lot of energy there, but we do elective as well with
Fair.
equal distance.
Understood. Understood. If we were to take a step back here, and this question kind of is out for everyone in the room, uh, coming in this conversation as from an outsider's perspective, right? While we do understand that the major elephant in the room is out of pocket expenses, I think it will be interesting to understand how various geographies across the globe are handling this problem, because I'm sure this would be reflected in different places as well. So if any of you could kind of quickly jump in and give us a view on how essentially that piece is been handled.
Sure. So let me kind of take a crack at that. And I come more from a pharma, medical devices, and an overall healthcare, uh, including the provider setup background as well, including now the digital space. Um, I, if you take a step back and look at it, in totality, I feel in India, at an aggregate sum level, for people who, from an access to care perspective, I think we are fairly blessed. So, if you purely think of it from an access perspective, you don't really have a challenge of reaching out to a cardiologist or a nephrologist or so, and you can do it at the push of a button, right? That way, do we still have a skewed ratio for that? Certainly, yes. We'd certainly like to have a lot more. From a payments model perspective, across the world, it varies. Um, whether to say it's right or wrong. So in a lot of places, like in a fair bit of countries, there's still a lot of social security angle to
Right.
payment, right? And therefore, it's both good and bad. One could argue it that way. In a lot of countries which are developing, a lot of private payments or out-of-pocket expenditure still leads the way, including countries like India,
Mhm.
where we don't have enough of, one could argue, we don't have enough of social security for everyone, and therefore private payments and social security kind of leads the way. But I think one theme which kind of dominates the emerging markets across the world, and which I have seen, is everyone is trying to solve the question of the missing middle,
True.
right? Where people who can afford a bit, the people who are in the informal employment sector can afford a bit of healthcare, but don't necessarily fall into the fold of social coverage. And that's really the big challenge, including for a country like India, where one would argue that there are about like a couple of 100 million in that segment, right?
Right.
And that's really the big problem for us to solve, or a lot of emerging markets to solve. That's really from the underlying thing from a very global perspective.
Understood. Thank you so much, Apurva. I think Chris, over to you.
Actually, I do have a point, but I want to give Atul the chance to give his perspective from the insurance industry, and then perhaps I can circle back.
Right. So as Apurva mentioned, I mean, India lives in multiple classes. On one hand, we have the uh, extreme end where insurance is available on the tap, and affordability is also present to the higher end of the economic scale. And on the other hand, we have the absolutely impoverished people who don't have means and access and the wherewithal to afford insurance or anything. So, for that segment, probably we have the government coming and stepping in, and today Jana Aushadhalayas, which take care of medicines as well as the OPDs for the deprived class. That has been a big relief. Even for their secondary and tertiary treatments, we have the Pradhan Mantri Jana Arogya as a program. which has been quite successful. Almost every state in the country has implemented it in some form or the other. It's just the missing middle that Apurva mentioned about is the area uh, where we still have a challenge. There is a lot of affordability in this segment, but there is a lack of awareness. As an insurance sector, we have just scratched the surface, is what I would say. Uh, India's insurance penetration in terms of the per capita, I mean, of the GDP is just about 3.7%. The total number of people who, if we exclude the social schemes and the programs run by government, the people who have afforded or availed the insurance benefit is just like at 8 and 9%. So you have a huge gap that we see present in the Indian ecosystem. Uh, Needless to say, not having sufficient coverage, not having sufficient means to protect your health expenditure, there is time and again uh, a large number of or large population that is pushed into poverty. The only way to address those surprises is by selling off your assets and liquidating your hard-earned money or borrowings from the market or friends and family. So this is has been a challenge for India. Insurance has played some role, but it's still miles to go, is what I would say.
So just to kind of pick that up, thanks so much. So my perspective actually came in as a healthcare consumer, and, especially in my role now at Cube, we looked at emerging markets and we looked at developing markets to try and understand the entire aspect of out of pocket, right? So our perspective is as follows. So, in the Western markets and the evolved markets, so to speak, out of pocket still exists. US, for example, still has got about 10% to 15% of out of pocket. In dollar terms, that's a significant number, 500 billion or so. But as a percentage, it's relatively smaller. There is, of course, access to state-sponsored and government-sponsored primary care and various other bits. But we all know of people who live there who complain about how access to that care usually takes really long. So, unless it is emergency and you're in a really, really, critical state, it's unlikely to get pushed up. So a simple dental appointment or a basic piece usually takes a couple of weeks. So they have their own challenges, be it the NHS in the UK or the social security healthcare system in the US. But given that we are all based here in India, the context that's relevant for us is essentially to look at the problems in India. And the way we see this at a macro level is as follows, right? First is, social security and government spending on healthcare is less than 1% or thereabouts of GDP. Uh, it's actually less than countries like Bhutan, who spend a significant percentage of GDP. Given our population size, given our poverty and various other aspects, as government spending on healthcare, that needs to significantly go up. Whatever we are seeing is good, but incremental one going to 2% seems like 100% growth, but actually even 2% is less. So we need to do a lot more. And there are various models that the government, of course, is experimenting with, and a public-private partnership in that area is something that can be very much possible, in my opinion. So there is that aspect. Second is insurance, unfortunately, in India has never been purchased as a health risk mitigation measure. It's always been purchased as a tax risk mitigation measure. A CA will advise you when you're filing your taxes that acha, take a policy because इससे आपका इतना tax बच जाएगा. I wish a lot of 20 something year olds stepping into the first steps of their career are actually educated on, what, take a policy right now. Take as much as you can, the best coverage that you can for everything possible, and hopefully it will take care of your expenses, when you are 50 plus and so on and so forth, and the evenings of your life. And maybe you can do the same, even if it is expensive for your family members who are elderly. Now, as a result of this inadequacy of health insurance, culturally, we think that, oh, why should I pay for health insurance now when it might be something that I will need 20, 30 years later. That has been the big challenge that insurance companies have been trying to fight, the awareness. Most people that we speak to don't even understand the difference between Jeevan Bima and Health Bima. A life insurance and a health insurance differentiation, most people don't know. They just think that, oh, I bought a life insurance policy and that should be okay. And then they go to the hospital and realize, oops, I actually did not even know this. Now I'm talking about urban. At the non-urban case, it is almost invariably depending on family savings or borrowings. Jose can give you more insight on this. But when we looked at this market, we saw borrowing from friends and family or usurious lenders was really killing and compounding poverty. People were borrowing at 40%, 50% interest rates because urgently paise chahiye for the hospital, and then you keep paying interest on interest, and then you are never able to get out of that entirely. That's the landscape that we are operating with. Right? Now, what's the silver lining? I think silver lining has been unfortunately thrust upon us post COVID. The awareness of, oh my God, this can really cause a problem has really gone up. Even we see in the 300 plus corporates that we work with, youngsters actually asking their HR people that, hey, what is this group health insurance policy you're giving me? Tell me what is included. Tell me what is not included, etc. So there is that aspect over there. That's my 2 cents.
No, perfect. I think thank you so much. That gives us a lot more context of what's actually happening at the ground level. Now, moving forward to kind of understand this problem statement more and what has been done, I think uh, invariably one of the few things that I've seen out there that kind of helps, and correct me if I'm wrong, is one is the concept of super top up insurance, which still does not cover your out of pocket expenses, but it kind of provides you with a slightly cheaper option to get an additional larger cover if you have a company policy, right? Second piece is what I came across when I had spoken with Chris for the first time via Qube Health, and I think I would love for you to kind of deep dive into it to kind of explain to us what essentially happens there, and then would love different perspectives on this from Apurva, Jose, and Atul on how essentially uh, further kind of solutions can be developed to address these kind of situations that there are.
So maybe we can begin with Atul telling you a little bit about the super top up and that aspect.
Sure.
Yes, so essentially, super top up is something to do with an additional cover when you have a base cover in place, and typically the base cover is from your employer. I mean, those who are in professional lives have some amount of coverage that the employers give you for you at your own individual level or for the family also. But that's not sufficient, and that's where you can go for a super top up. So there being a certain threshold of deductible, super top up becomes more affordable. So while you get a very large amount of cover in terms of sum insured, you are not paying the price in that proportion, because your super top up policy will actually trigger only when your base cover is exhausted or the base cover is deducted from the payable amounts. Having said that, we should also remember that the most prominent mistake that people who are in employment make is they don't see a situation arising where they will be out of employment, or they will be in between where switching jobs, where their cover has ended, they are yet to join the new company where they wanted to go, and in that phase they are actually without any insurance cover. The second aspect that most people also forget is that while the employer's cover is available till the time you are in the job, by the time you are out of employment, you have reached a age where if you buy a new or a fresh cover, you will still have to survive a period which is called in the insurance jargon as waiting period. So for first few years, it could be starting from 1 year to and up to 4 years, there are certain ailments and medical conditions that are not payable under any cover or any policy. This is a mistake that most of the people make. As Chris mentioned about, we have to catch them young. Buying an health cover at an early stage and growing it gradually depending upon your affordability is the right way in approaching a health insurance program. Buying it at a later stage, one is you are having it a very costly amount, which is a blow or which is a sudden medical or which is a sudden expense that you are incurring, and secondly you'll have a waiting period. The third aspect that I wanted to bring to the table is buying insurance does not mean that you have everything covered. It's good for advertisements, but in essence the insurance companies come with a lot of terms and conditions. For instance, the OPD expenses are generally not covered. That's an add-on peril that you have to cover, and your agent or your counselor uh, tries not to sell because one, it is going to spoil the claims ratio and his incentives are going to be impacted, and second, it comes pricey. So when you are making a pitch for a first timer, if you give a pitch of a very high expenditure, you are likely to lose a customer. So OPD is normally an exclusion, and uh, if we do a round across the table, today it is anywhere between 10,000 to 25,000 a year that you end up spending on OPD expenses. Unless that OPD has a follow up of a treatment, IPD treatment, the OPD expenses are on your account. So this is another critical aspect that people tend to forget when they buy insurance covers. Yeah, back to you, Shreyas
Yeah.
or Stress.
That's actually very interesting. So Shreyas, if you permit me, I wanna try and sync a thread between what we have spoken so far and aspects from the pharma perspective and patient care management that Apurva brings in, and the financing that Joe talks about, and of course the insurance perspective that
By
Atul
all
talks
means,
about.
by all means, please go.
The interesting thing that we are seeing, I mean, as Qube Health Pay, we are a healthcare payments app. Our mission is really to make the process of healthcare payments as frictionless as possible. We find that it is ironic that in our country today we use UPI to pay your pani puri wala and your chaat wala. But I wish it were so simplified for us to simply pay for all of our family's healthcare expense. Now, I caveat that by saying, of course, we pay using UPI at a hospital and a doctor and so on and so forth. But imagine if that UPI or that payment mechanism through the app were connected to all funding sources that are available to you and your family. Now, the funding sources, therefore, are your own savings, which may be in the form of money in the bank account. It may be in the form of mutual funds or PF and ESIC and so on and so forth. Or it may be in the form of borrowing. And borrowing, again, can be your credit card. It can be borrowing from your employer. It might be borrowing from friends and family, or it can give you access to external borrowings from NBFCs such as Arogya Finance, or you have access to government direct benefit transfers, government programs. Now, imagine if all of these pools of money that are currently in different buckets, different silos, which most the average citizen does not even know that this exists or what is possible. It creates a layer of uncertainty. It creates a layer of anxiety, especially at a time when you need it the most. When you are rushing your family member to the hospital, you want to just simply go ahead and make a payment and get them admitted, which is the reason why we end up depending on the most convenient form of payment, which is today credit cards. So you simply swipe, 50,000 rupees admission fees, बाद में देखा जाएगा kind of situation is the approach that one takes, right? Now, the बाद में देखा जाएगा is actually has a tadka of guilt and various other emotions that are attached to it. And unfortunately, that is what the healthcare providers, I'm sorry to say, actually take advantage of. They will say that, look, this is the price. I cannot negotiate with you too much. आप जल्दी से कर दो, जल्दी से पैसे दे दो. Now, in that situation, it's very difficult to do a rational thinking because your emotional thinking is on overdrive on aspects that way, right? Then there is the other aspect that Atul mentioned about OPD as well. What we are seeing interestingly is that younger, healthier people actually are spending a lot on nutraceuticals, vitamins and this and that, etc. That expenditure has gone up. A lot of them are actually taking elective procedures which they don't necessarily need to, but they want to, such as teeth straightening, color, skin lightening. They want to look better, they want to feel better, and so on and so forth. Let's extend that further, right? From physical health, we are going to mental health. We are seeing a lot of expenditure happening on mental health counseling. And there is a large expenditure because that's an unregulated sector. It takes about, on an average, 1,800 rupees per consultation. It takes about 3 consultations to decide whether that particular doctor or the counselor is the right one for you. And you need to do 3 such different doctors to decide that that doctor is the right one for you. So you're talking, a significant amount of expenditure before you determine, the kind of care that you want. All of these things put together, there is one most important element: the cost of medical inflation. I mean, medical inflation, the cost of medicines and various other things is rising significantly. Estimates put it anywhere between 17% and above on an annually basis, and that's going crazy, right? So I want to segue that and move the question, Mike, back to Jose actually, who's seeing this on the ground very closely, especially with oncology drugs. The kind of expenses that are there and how he kind of addresses that. And perhaps from Jose, we can jump to Apurva, who can give his perspective on that bit as well. Jose, over to you.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah. Yeah, so specifically coming to oncology, the situation is quite dire there. There are multiple treatment options there. I mean, incidences are going up like crazy, that everyone is aware of. And there are multiple options there to treat for this. But unfortunately, many patients and even oncologists don't go down that path, because even oncologists feel that this patient, I don't think they can afford this. And why do I expose them to a line of treatment which is supposed to be superior? And at the end of it, the family comes to the conclusion that we cannot afford it. And in the process, you are worse than what you started off with, because you know that what I'm going to get is inferior, okay, because superior I cannot afford, okay. And you end up in a very bad place, both in terms of outcome and even otherwise mentally. So many oncologists don't even suggest an immunotherapy, etc. Okay. So what we have tried to do is to address this from both directions, both from the demand side and the supply side. Okay. So on the demand side, we will create payment options, monthly payment options, interest free. So they have to just return whatever money that they have taken over a period of time without paying any interest on it. Okay. And whether you go and buy it on cash or on monthly payment options, the price that they pay is the same. So it's not as though indirectly the interest is getting added on to the cost or anything like that. So that is the demand side solution. And we are also doing that. There was a time when it took us maybe a few days to be able to evaluate and decide whether we can give them a loan or an EMI option, and ask for a lot of documentation. And at the end of it, sometimes you even say sorry. Yeah. Today, it takes less than 5 minutes. So, and the documentation, what are the documents that you are seeking? Your PAN card and the Aadhaar card copy. That's it. Yeah. So rest everything, a digital platform takes over, pulls multiple data points at the back end, uses a rule engine to decide whether to approve or not to approve a loan, and deliver that to them without even a physical contact, using just a OTP based payment mandate and an agreement, and the loan is disbursed. Okay. So that is on the demand side, the movement that we have made. And we are able to do large ticket sizes like 15 lakhs, sometimes even 25 lakhs, etc. We have been able. On the supply side, so let me give an example of something that we have done. Obviously I don't want to quote the name of the company. It's a very a blockbuster uh, 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 cancer drug, an immunotherapy. It will normally cost about 40 lakh rupees in India to treat. Yeah. Obviously, many or most cannot afford this. So, working with the pharma, we have created a mechanism whereby we do a socio-economic evaluation of the family. And again, it is a digital journey, just requires PAN card, Aadhaar card, TAT of less than half an hour, everything put together, and a decision is then conveyed automatically. And based on that evaluation, that drug becomes available for 11 lakh rupees. Instead of 40 lakh, the drug is now available to that family for 11 lakh rupees. And that again in 12 interest-free installments. Okay, so where is 40 lakh, which you need to pay down payment, where is 11 lakh paid in 90,000 rupee installments over a period of 12 months without any interest. Okay, so this is the kind of this is what we do from the supply side. So we are trying to make this cheaper and affordable for patients. Okay, and on the other side, you create EMI options so that they can afford to pay for it. So one is the drug becomes cheaper, and on the other side, payment becomes easier. So from both sides, we are trying to address this, and using these methodologies. Currently, we are enrolling more than 1,000 patients per month for oncology, for innovative oncology therapies. Okay. Obviously, we for this we had to build a network. So only for this cancer program, we have created a network of 627 multi-speciality hospitals, 2,100 plus oncologists in the network. All that the patient has to do is go to the hospital. Doctor decides whether this is the drug that doctor wants to use for the patient. And if the answer is yes, all that the patient has to do is to call up Arogya's toll-free number. Okay, we will pick that up, speak in multiple languages for them, work on a TAT of less than half an hour, call back, within a TAT, call back if a call is missed and an evaluation is completed and the drug becomes available. And of the patients who come to us, around 90% of them get the treatment. Instead of the 40 lakh, they will get it at either 11 lakh or 18 lakh. The rest, of course, will have to pay the 40 lakhs because they can afford to pay. So these are the kind of solutions that we have tried to create. We also have the ability to vary the discounts that are paid to the discounts that are offered to the patient. We can vary that by patient. Okay, so if somebody is very unaffordable, then they will get the maximum discount. Somebody else will get a midway discount. Somebody may not get a discount at all. And on a weighted average basis, the farmer will still realize the price that they're looking to realize. So in the process, the sad reality is, if there are 100 patients out there who require these kind of expensive, innovative therapies, only 10 or 12 are getting it. So how do we push that into 25, 40, 50% is what we are trying to do, working on both sides.
Wonderful. Should we move it to Apurva? Apurva, your perspective, please.
Hey, sure. Thank you. So, quick couple of thoughts, right? I think first, look, hospitalization is by far a very, very emotional experience, right? And therefore, everyone across the entire spectrum tends to focus on that, right? What I just like to draw your attention to, though, is, and without taking away anything from these, cost of medication, especially in India, typically, if you look at it, and thanks to a lot of companies like ours and in general, Indian pharma in general, the cost of general medication by far, I would argue, is one of the lowest in the world, right? General medication. I'm not talking about innovative drugs, right? Of course, innovative drugs are expensive, and the reason for them being expensive is because there is a cost of clinical trials, innovation, R&D, etc., which has to be realized somewhere, right? But if you take on an average, I mean, if you look at the Pareto effect, I would probably argue that 80-90% of the medications are within the affordable realm for most people. Uh, that's part B of the story is, and I completely agree with what Joe said. I think the area of where expenses need to be met for that emotional experience of hospitalization at that moment is a crucial point, right? And there you need help. But I think another area where we significantly lack, and I think while most of our expenses in the healthcare space get directed towards the hospitalization or the care providing domain, as it's called, where a lot of attention is not paid to is screenings, a lot of attention is not paid to is care continuum, which is post hospitalization. And therefore, we on a daily basis see people uh, and I'm sure you hear this from every physician around the world, that if you screen regularly and if you screen early enough, almost all of the ailments that you see, which are high cost, could be treated well within time. Most of them can be cured, right? The second area is where a lot of a minuscule amount of expenses goes towards is post hospitalization care or post care continuum, etc. And I'm not even getting into the data aspect of it as of now, right? I am simply getting into, is there enough of attention paid towards it? Absolutely not. And therefore, on a daily basis, we see people getting back into the entire emotional experience of getting back to the physician or the hospital purely because they didn't have enough of they didn't take the right course of continue the right course of medication for the appropriate amount of time. They had an infection but didn't care enough, etc. And therefore, what we may have to do as a policy is screen enough, screen early, pay a lot of attention uh, to post facto interventions. Pay a lot of attention to that element where, and I think all of our technologies can play a lot of role in that, right? A lot of technologies can. I mean, today you have technologies that can give you, your heart rate, your blood pressures, etc., by you sitting at home. You really ECGs are available by you sitting at home, right? So you really need not be dependent on a provider to assess that. The other side of the story is, and segueing from what Joe said, I think a lot of every company that I know of, every pharma medical devices company that I know of, is looking at ways and means to make their particular products available to as many people as possible at the lowest possible cost. Right, and therefore there are n number of programs that we work with, that all the other companies that I know work with companies like Jose's, multiple others where you have financing, discounting, access through multiple means, right? And therefore, what I feel is we are getting into the right direction. We're getting there. A, a bit more attention may probably be needed on the pre and the post side of things because, as I said, the experience of the hospital is so emotional enough that a lot of attention and therefore money gets paid towards it. Maybe a little more before that could probably help save that.
Interesting. I think that brings a lot of into perspective, and thank you, Chris, for taking up this question. It kind of stitches a narrative together. What really also intrigues me when we kind of one is, as you Apollo rightly said, preventative measures in terms of screening and all of that are really not that pertinent in countries like India, where people wait till the last minute to kind of go out and essentially जब actual symptoms आता है, it's already too late, and that is initially when you go and do the screening. But in terms of uh, how to uh, how to essentially bring about a change, one in behavior and second in the financial behavior of people. Chris, if you could probably throw some light on one is I think a part of it is being done by you yourself in terms of the financial behavior, and would also want to brainstorm a bit on how essentially concepts like subscription or sachetization can be utilized to bring all of the screening and preemptive measures into play for let's say someone who's at a grassroots level to be able to easily digest and adopt that into their regular life.
Sure, sure. It's actually an interesting point. So sachetizing every bit. I mean, we are a country of sachets, right? I mean, from the 1 rupee shampoo to 100 rupees extra for baggage loss insurance, right? I think those are great innovations in adapting it to India, and I think that needs to apply here as well. But to address the question of how do we change behavior, healthcare behavior changing is actually one of the most difficult things to do, right? And a simple experiment is if somebody came to you and said, "Bhai, please go and do a health checkup," you'll be like, "Yes, yes, I need to do it." And then you will just park it at the side of your mind until, God forbid, something incident were to happen and the doctor says that pehle aap jaake health checkup karao. There is a corollary to that behavior. What we noticed is people care about their family members' health more than they care about their own health. So if I came to you and said, "Why don't you gift a health checkup to your parents?" And these are the benefits that you will come to know apart from the standard bit that can actually help you do better, take better care of them. Maybe if I came to you and said, "Hey, do you want to do that for your child?" You are more likely to pay attention. And I think that behavioral notion is very, very important, first, for us to understand. Second is small steps. So, what we've realized with Qube is that if you step into the life of the healthcare consumer or the healthcare payer by enabling and rewarding them on everyday basic expenses for healthcare. So, like I say, Dolo and Digene, if you are
Right.
able to give them some sort of a value, because we are value addicted, right? I mean, every Indian wants a great deal. So essentially, if you give them a reward, like we do in the Qube app, every time you make a payment through the Qube app for health and medical expenses, your Dolo and Digene, we give you a cashback, and that cashback is then utilized for your next medical expense, and that could be a doctor visit, it could be a diagnostic clinic. What you're doing is you're essentially creating a continuous loop of consumer behavior. एक आदत बन जाती है. Most of us who are used to ordering from Zepto and Instamart, Blinkit, etc. Now we know that we can't almost imagine a world before Swiggy's and the Zomatos and all of those things were there. But today that's a reality. And I think that reality is setting in India as well. Most of our users are shocked by the fact that यार मुझे पता ही नहीं था कि मैं दवाइयों पे इतना खर्चा कर रहा हूँ. And a household, in our definition, household is 3.5 people approximately, spends on an average about 12,000 rupees a month on just medicines every month.
Damn.
Because somebody has blood pressure, somebody has allergies, somebody has diabetes, somebody is getting vitamins, somebody's got fever. And that in itself is a big chunk on just daily, everyday medicines. We are not even talking about serious medicines. Once in, thanks to our, various weather-related conditions, almost every 1 quarter, somebody in the family has got sardi, zukham, tummy upset, fever, this, that, etc. So you have a doctor visit, you have a diagnostic expense. So it kind of piles up, right? The reason I mentioned that is not about the healthcare condition, but about embedding yourself in that journey. And that journey that we Indians understand is financial. So the conversation is not about, अच्छा आपका हेल्थ केयर में बेटर रिपोर्ट मिलेगा. The conversation is आप anyway खर्चा कर रहे हो, आपका खर्चा कम हो जाएगा. When you do that, you embed yourself in the behavior. And that begins a conversation. And the conversation for us at Qube is as follows. Hey, you regularly seem to be spending on this particular thing. Do you want to click to call and connect to a healthcare provider who can actually help you manage this better? Or click to call and actually order medicines that are cheaper? Click to call, or would you like to watch a video that helps you understand better about this particular healthcare condition. I'll go one step further. Let's say you spent on a large expense at a hospital. Can you take a picture of the bill and check if that is covered under your insurance policy? And instantly, you will come to know if that is a claimable expense if you happen to have health insurance. Or would you like to upload your insurance policy and it will help make sense of that policy for you and tell you where the gaps are? And maybe then you can purchase additional top up policy and so on and so forth. If you are paying for, let's say, a knee replacement surgery, for 500 rupees extra, you get top up insurance to take care of any post operative care. And this is sachetizing that entire experience, right? And I think that's a conversation which the young people actually understand. If you are at a hospital spending on oncology, did you know that there are these financing options that are available from Arogya Finance? If you are spending on that particular medicine, did you know that there are these pharma companies that are willing to do, no cost education measures that can help you actually have better palliative care or better post-operative care? I think that is where the stitching in of the financial innovation comes in. Ultimately we are all talking to the same customer, but we are using different communication methods, and I think all needs to come together, and that is where financial innovation, I believe, is the best way to kind of take that. So that's my part there, but I'm happy to hear actually the insurance perspective from Atul.
You said it right, Chris. I mean, sachetization is the way forward because that also brings in a affordability aspect and addresses that issue. For instance, uh, products like parameterized products, okay, where depending upon the diagnostic report, if you have a typhoid, of a malaria, a dengue, or something else, the policy steps in some phase. If those conditions are not met on the investigation report, then the cover is not available. What it does is basically it reduces the scope of the cover to a particular ailment, which can be clearly established by way of a medical evidence. Now, since the cover is restricted to that ailment, it becomes more affordable, and then the possibility of selling it in the bulk also increases. So the insurers also get their spread that they are more keen and interested in. At the same time, the insured also is very happy about the cost that he is paying for and the benefit that he is entitled to. That's one aspect of it. Second aspect is about the OPD covers. Now there are many covers that are available on standalone basis also. With the advent of standalone health insurance companies, there has been a very high level of innovation in the market, insurance market, and there are many products that are available on for the OPD covers also. Now these covers, though there is not much of a traction as of today because there is a less awareness and there is less perceived advantage that people still see. Because the younger crowd, which should essentially be the target group, is more carefree. They said, "Bhagwan bachayega humko, humko kya hone wala hai." And the elder crowd, which is more inclined to buy it, is a adverse group for the insurance, obviously. So these types of products also are a great boon for the masses to kind of protect their savings, which normally get exhausted because of the diagnostic processes or OPD medicines or stuff like that. And the last thing that we already have discussed about it earlier, the top up covers, they being in a very high level of affordability of a very high level of cover. So, and the protection there is against the catastrophic ailments, what we call in insurance parlance as critical ailments. So typically OPD cover would typically top up cover would address to almost 25 to 35, anywhere between in that range, types of medical conditions which incur a very high level or a very high amount of expenditure, and that becomes a very affordable cover then. So these are some of the innovative things that the industry has also brought in over a period of time. uh, if you remember, during the COVID days, regulators themselves had stepped in, because many insurers had a kind of an exclusion in their standard covers about communicable diseases. So there were two covers that were brought in by the regulator. One was a typical benefit cover where you are detected by COVID ailment, you get a per day kind of a benefit, no documents to be presented, no bills to be submitted, no evidence of admission to be required. It's just that you have to submit your report, the test report, and that gives you entitlement of that claim. The second was more traditional cover, which is a reimbursement or which is a indemnity cover, wherein you have a treatment taken and you claim against that treatment. But the point here is that innovation is not restricted only for the insurance industry, but even the regulator is stepping in and trying to bring the insurance into a realms of affordability that will help spread the message also. I think of all the wrong things that COVID has done, one positive that has happened is the awareness about buying insurance cover. And today, uh, insurance has moved out from a product that is sold to a product that is bought. That's, I think, the bigger change that has happened over a period of time. Yeah, back to you.
Perfect. I think that is very well put. So thank you so much for that. Given that, and I think we are about to hit our time threshold as well, I would want to kind of quickly go around the room and do a very small thought experiment. I would want each one of you to kind of envision what next 5 years would look like in Indian healthcare, finance, and payments industry. What changes do you envisage coming in with advent of technologies and the concepts like sachetization and all of that? And if you can share what role is your organization kind of playing in that, and then probably Chris, you could give a quick roundup of your views and summary of that. So we can probably start with
For sure. So I think, look, healthcare, so quickly, right? Healthcare is by far a laggard in terms of adoption of technology, and rightly so, because you need to test out technologies before you really experiment with lives of people as such, right? Um, but I think in the next 5 years there are few things that will surely happen. I think one is you will see a lot more role of technology coming into screening and diagnostics. You're already seeing a lot of AI technology and image detection and stuff like that, right? So I think a lot of help will come in because that's one very clear area that I see that image detection will become a lot uh, aided, rather than just relying on the radiologist as such. So you'll have a lot more technology embedding in that. I would probably go to the extent of saying that there will be these device makers who will embed these technologies and give you these devices as such. Um, Secondly, what I feel is there will be a lot of um, continuum of care happening, because that's starting to happen. So you will see a lot of rather than you going to a physician and then coming out and then going to a B hospital, you'd see a lot more continuum happening of care where um, and government is already putting the right creating your medical IDs and stuff like that. It may not happen in the next 5 years, but I think it's in the right direction. So you'll see a lot more care continuum happening. And the last one is my wish is, which I hope that we have a lot more structured codification of care pathways, data, because that's one really, really missing area, right? I mean, we're really going as per what anyone wants in the world, right? So it's a difficult thing to happen in the next 5 years, but that's really a wish. The role that we are playing in that is we're playing a very, very big role in the entire area of care continuum. So as an organization, Lupin Digital is really at the forefront of tying in anything that has to do with the patient before and after the patient really hits a hospital. So whether it's an detection, emergency management, or risk prevention, of course, with keeping the physician at the center of all of this, keeping the physician informed. Um, and if unfortunately an event hits a patient, then we do ensure that, rather than the patient taking up the time of the physician for every small detail, we ensure that these can be solved from a digital or a remote perspective. So that's the role that we play. Thank you.
Perfect. I think that really excites me for the future of healthcare, since we're talking about embedding of technology from the root level rather than as an additional as of now, the way it's happening. And overall, from what you said and from what I can gather, it seems like it'll kind of make diagnostics and screening a lot more easier, streamlined, and a lot more intelligent in that terms. Perfect. So, Atul, so over to you. Would love to understand how do you see this entire piece evolving from an insurance perspective, and over to you.
So two, three things I would like to say here is insurers so far have been very passive players. They have been stepping into the game after there is an ailment, after there is an hospitalization, event that has happened already, right? I think in
True.
time to come, insurance will get into a more proactive stage, which is managed healthcare. As we speak, there is a tons of data that insurers are deciphering on a day-to-day basis. Many of the insurers, and especially I'm making mention of the private insurer who have been in business for now over 20 years, have customers or have members who have been insured for anywhere between 5 to 15 years of time continuously with them, and that has helped them capture a lot of medical history about those members. So they are building algorithms and they are building predictabilities or doing a predictive analysis of what the member is likely to suffer as a health ailment in future, in this future life. So from just being payers of insurance claims when they are lost, to now insurers would start getting into a mold of predicting and managing the life cycle of that individual member. And Apurva just mentioned about government stepping in. So the Abha ID that the government is trying to create for every individual, and that is collecting information not just from the hospital, but that will collect information even from the diagnostic centers and test laboratories. That will enable the government to do a very good analysis of the general health and the infrastructure requirement of the country. This maybe 5 years is too early to expect that to happen, but in a period from 5 to 10 years from today, as a society, we will be in a much better shape to address to the requirements of the masses. Today and during COVID periods, we significantly found the absence or the shortage of the availability, infra availability. So that will be handled in much better way. The planners and the strategies will be coming into play on the basis of the data. The third thing about technology. Now, while technology on the medical side is an important thing and it's changing by the day, I think technology is going to reduce the administrative overheads to a significant level. That will mean that the cost of treatment reduces to a great extent. Example that we have around the table, I mean, what Qube Health is doing or what Arogya Finance is doing, making the availability of credit on the spur of the moment, right? Similarly, if today at the hospitals the amount of investment they require in managing health care or managing the health treatment or maybe doing the billing and accounting of that, if that reduces to an extent, that becomes the care cost becomes affordable. That's the third aspect that will be happening. And the fourth thing is which we discussed about the sachetization. Now that is going to change the dynamics because that will make people used to or accustomed to buying insurance because it is very easy to buy. A classic example that I always give. Today, when you are booking an air ticket, there's a pop-up which talks about air travel insurance. Okay. Now the cost of that becomes so attractive because it's an embedded journey. There is nothing that the insurance company or the insurance provider has to do extra to kind of sell that. Similarly, when you're, I mean, the other classic example is the personal accident cover. It's not a pure health case, but the personal accident cover that gets embedded when you buy a train ticket. Now imagine the kind of losses that happen because of train accidents, with loss of life that happen, and every time the government would step in and pay the compensation. Today the government has made a alternative mechanism available where the traveler himself pays for his compensation. So these are the things, the sachetization, the ease of digital sales, these are the things that are going to change the landscape of health cover. And I'm pretty optimistic that from a present scenario of being a respondent to a situation, we will become more proactive players in time to come. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I think what really excites me is how you've kind of described the role of insurance players changing from being reactive as of now to proactive over the next few years. And with introduction of ABA ID, how the entire landscape is even the infra piece will change. And I think this would definitely deserves a separate podcast with you on this topic, wherein we can kind of deep dive into that. Looking forward to that. Having said that, I think Mr. Jose would love your perspective on how do you see the healthcare finance piece evolving, how the mindset of folks in terms of borrowing during the crisis also kind of is evolving, and how do you see the other aspects of the industry as well?
Yeah. So with a confident India emerging, every Indian should be able to afford quality healthcare. Yeah. I mean, it's a given. It is disgusting to think that 5 crore Indians are falling off to poverty uh, every year because of the medical shocks that their families face. And all of these are falling off from the middle, the missing middle, as Apurva put it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that is where most of this loss is happening from. Okay? Now, this can only be solved by 3 or 4 of these areas working together and overall increasing the GDP spend. Because spending a couple of percentage on the low GDP that India already has, we are not going to reach there. We have to, and compare that with maybe 12-16%, which some of the developed countries are spending on their GDP. Okay, so what are the so who all need to work together to get this happening? The pharma and the caregivers, I think, are doing a pretty good job already, making things world class as well as very affordable. Insurance is doing its bit. There's a lot more to go. Atul mentioned that. Um, Government has to step in and increase their spend on the GDP, no doubt. But in the middle, again, there is a significant contribution that the people themselves can do. Okay, so if I need to go for if I need to buy a let's say mobile phone, I have EMI options available. I can go to a foreign location for travel. It is available. But when it comes to medical care, 1,000 questions are being asked. Where are you going to spend it? Where are you going to get treated? What is the disease? All of this. When I travel abroad, no such questions gets asked, right? Okay. So I want to travel, and then I get. So the point is, we should, from an Arogya perspective, and we would like to see a robust, financing or finance solution industry emerging, okay, which will then step in and provide and take care of the slack between the government spend and the insurance spend, okay, insurance penetration, and cover that so that people don't have to suffer this ignominy of having to fall off into poverty just because the family is hit by one medical shock. Yeah. So obviously, from our perspective, we are doing enough, and we are hoping that the industry will step in and do more.
Undoubtedly, I think that is brilliantly put. The piece, especially about the missing middle, wherein there is also the slack that you said that is between the insurance and the government spends. I think, and that is essentially a very huge gap area where people, as of now, have very limited options to finance, and more and more advocacy as well as industry stepping up to kind of finance that piece and give credit to the people who can actually leverage it to not at least who fall into the poverty piece as you earlier mentioned. I think that will be a brilliant thing to see, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. Having said that, I think Chris, over to you. Would love to hear your perspectives as well as what you make of this entire conversation of today's that we had with the panel of experts.
I mean, first, I'm positive that these conversations are happening, and the respective perspectives that Apurva, Atul, and Joseph presented from their respective industries. It gives hope, right, to anyone in the audience, saying that there is. I want us to imagine a world, not too far away, especially from an India perspective, where we use an extension of our bodies today to manage our healthcare, and that extension is this device. This device, which urban, non-urban, rural, all of us today carry, all of us have gotten used to. It's with us all the time. That device essentially should be the carrier and caregiver for everyone in our family. Now, so when I envision that world, I envision that device essentially not only helping me access my medical records or my family's medical records, it helps me access sources of money so that I can pay for them. It helps me access treatment options and gives those choices to me so that I can make better decisions for my family's healthcare. It guides me to evaluate and then reach out to whatever options are available. Ultimately, for me, the way I see it is that device should help me take control. It should help me take control of my family's healthcare options. For us at Qube, that has been our mission. In fact, that's our tagline. Take control. We want the device to be the way we pay for our healthcare, access financing, access insurance, access health records. I hate to use a word which has now become so common, which is AI. Thanks to that, today we are able to get answers. Very, very quickly, comparisons and so on and so forth. Why shouldn't that be part of that journey? So that's the vision that I see, and I feel optimistic about it.
Brilliant. I think that's very aptly put, and I completely am aligned with you when you say that this device should essentially empower us to take control of our healthcare. And essentially, when players like Qube, in this sense, are bringing together all aspects of healthcare under one platform, from insurance, from payments, from lending side as well, and multiple other pieces. I think it gives you a single platform to empower citizens to take control of that. And thank you so much for doing that. And with having said that, I think, gentlemen, I think it's been an honor hosting all of you here. And thank you so much for giving us your precious time and being available to share your expert opinions. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shreyas.
Thank you, Shreyas.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
everyone.
much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.